be natural. Oh, man.
Well, in that case.
The makeup. Does anybody have the makeup?
Yeah.
Because Lord have mercy, I need some.
I got a whole bag out
I
of
don't
the truck.
think you have enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, hey, everybody, you have just heard of a glimpse of how much fun we're going to have today on the TEMSEA Leadership Podcast. My name's Eric Claus. I have the honor to be able to be your host. We are on location at Walters State, and we have had a leadership journey over the last few days. All of us here have been teaching, and we just thought we would have some roundtable conversations with everybody, because I know from the feedback we've received, many of you like that style, and I do as well. So we're going to tackle a couple of leadership questions, and I have an amazing group of people with me today. Thank you all for being here and being our guest here on the TEMSEA podcast. So the question that I have for you all is, what is the greatest lesson you've learned in your leadership journey? So all of you have a lot of leadership experience. You've shared a lot of that today. We've taught a lot of that today. But that's the question that I think all of you could bring value in. The greatest lesson you've ever learned in your leadership journey. And I'm going to break the ice, and I'm going to go first with this. This is something that we taught a couple of days ago about the greatest lesson. And I think for me, it happened probably about maybe 10 years in my journey, when the person that I report to, after taking him several problems that I was dealing with, and he kind of politely and taught me, and he said, Eric, he said, I just want to share something with you, is that you are now in a director's role and you get paid to deal with problems. And that was transformative to me, because I always looked at problems being negative. And now I look at, wow, I actually have the skill to be able to help people that don't know how to solve problems, to be able to do that. And that was probably the greatest lesson that I've ever learned. Yes, there's many things and many layers to that, but learning that problems are part of leadership was transformational for me. So anyway, Jason, if you don't mind, just kind of share with everybody who you are, and then we'll have you answer that question.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for inviting me to be a part of the podcast. My name is Jason Fox. I'm the Senior Training Coordinator for AmeriMed Tennessee, but I also have the pleasure of serving as the Vice President of TEMSEA, the Tennessee EMS Education Association.
Yeah, which is why we're here today. Yes. So you are behind the scenes, and man, this has been an amazing journey over the last couple of years. So, all right, Jason, so here's the question. The greatest lesson you've ever learned in your leadership journey. How long have you been a leader, by the way, in a leadership role?
In a leadership role, probably the better part of 20 years.
Okay.
But to answer your question, sir, as I was reflecting on that, I think the greatest lesson I've learned is, regardless of your role, regardless of your title, we're all leaders. Whether you're leading your personal life, whether you're leading your family life, or maybe your ambulance. There's always somebody watching you, and you always have the ability to impact, hopefully positively, but we can all leave a positive impact and leave our profession better than we found it. So my greatest lesson that I learned was, from day one, we are all leaders. When you choose this profession, or maybe this profession chooses you, we are all leaders. Just some of us have titles and some don't.
Yeah. I think that is a gap in our EMS profession right now, and maybe even in all healthcare, is that we're trained how to do the skill, but nobody says, you know what, you are a leader and you have the influence to be able to direct somebody to patient care. And in reflecting on that, Jason, I thought about the times that a patient wanted to refuse care, and just the gentle words of saying, you know, Mrs. Jones or Mr. Jones, you really need to go. We care about you. And having the power and the influence to direct someone for life-saving care, or, you know, interventions that are going to make a difference. So that's certainly super powerful. Any comments on that from you, Darren, or Sarah? Which we'll do. We'll have you answer the question, but any comments to Jason's?
100%. I mean, it's just your leadership begins. I mean, in this profession, it begins when you get your license,
Yeah.
maybe even before.
Right.
But you may be the one directing care out in the middle of nowhere as an EMT basic, as a first responder. You just may be that person, and absolutely you need to recognize that first off, and just build on it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a natural born leader, I think, in all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. We all have the potential. Yeah, Sarah.
I think one of the things that we've been talking about in the class that we've been teaching is, that organizational culture and just embracing the organizational culture, being willing to step up and be that person who is a positive influence on others, whether that's a brand new person coming in the door or that's somebody who's been there for a while but maybe is still not in a formal leadership position. You don't have to be in a formal leadership role to be the change in an organization. And so, I definitely agree with what Jason was saying.
I think they articulated that very well. A leader is the person, it's not a title. So if you're waiting on a title to become a leader, I ask you to view that differently. You, when you wake up of a morning, you are a leader, if nothing more, in your own life, your own house, maybe your ambulance or with your patient care. So again, a leader is the individual, it's not the title.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we talk about this, in one of the sayings on the podcast. The most important thing you do is lead yourself. If you don't have anybody to lead, start with yourself, because it's going to be difficult to lead other people if you don't lead yourself well. So, great comments with that. And Darren, we're going to go with you. So do you mind sharing with everyone who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name's Darren Ford. I'm the Deputy Chief at Putnam County EMS in Cookeville. I've been in that role for 10 years, been in EMS for 19.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we appreciate that. We've known each other a long time. I've watched you lead and some great situations. And as we all know, there's challenging situations in this profession with what is happening today, and you certainly being part of many things and have done an amazing job. So let's talk about that question. So for you, what is the greatest lesson you've ever learned in your leadership journey?
I think for me, there are so many. I think for me, the biggest one is that you are only as good a leader as the people you are surrounded with. I have so many faults. I think in leadership, not necessarily in my strengths, but in my weaknesses, in my decision-making quirks, so to speak. And I'm surrounded by a group of people at my work that keep me grounded. My chief, Tommy Copeland, all of my majors and my captains and my lieutenants and my field training officers, they all have their different perspectives. They all have their different strengths, and we are never going to be as good individually making all those decisions as we are with letting everybody do it together.
Yeah.
And along with that, I talk a lot in our leadership development portion of the FTO class about allowing people the opportunity to make mistakes. And I was so blessed when I got started to have people give me the opportunity to make my mistakes and learn from them. And I also had the opportunity to learn from people who had a lot more experience than I did. But at the end of the day, we are as good a leader as we are willing to surround ourselves and empower people.
Yeah.
So.
Do you think that was that a hard transition for you to be able to recognize that it wasn't about you? Like I'm putting myself in that position where it's not about me, but there's other people that I can work with, and together we can do greater things than you can individually. Was there a transition period you were like, okay, I need to surround myself with great people?
I've always been surrounded with great people there. I mean, hands down, I had some great mentors and all that. But I think for me, as the organization grew and as I grew as a leader, probably the hardest thing is to let go of certain parts, let go of certain roles and responsibilities, because I can sit down and do this easily. Whereas the person that needs to be doing this, that I need to gift because I have no greater duty than to train my replacement, it may take them a couple days to do what I can do in 30 minutes just because I've done it 100 times. But if I don't empower them, if I don't equip them to do what needs to be done, then I don't leave my seat better than when I found it, and I've failed my organization at that point.
So this training your replacement thing happened, was discussed on our podcast with Brian McNeely, and he talked about that. And I think that is a concept that for maybe younger leaders that don't understand that we really have a responsibility as leaders to make it better when we leave, because we're all going to transition out of the positions. But really, I've heard the true test of leadership in succession is what happens after you leave. And I think that demonstrated, brilliantly, not to be insecure enough to be like, wow, they have great skill, great potential. I see him or her being able to do this better than I am. So when was that transition for you to be like, man, this is, I really need to be thinking about succession. Although you're very, very young in this journey, we hope that you're in it for a long, long time. But what was that like?
Yeah, thank you. I hope I don't get hit by a bus either. But I mean, but I don't know. Chief Copeland and I started I think probably it happened at like a winter workshop for one of the Homeland Security meetings. I was sitting there and there was no cell service and middle of winter and not really a whole lot to do. And so what does this look like? And I already knew, and Chief Copeland and I had had several conversations, that we know we want to expand this. We know that what we have now, we had just outgrown.
Okay.
And so how do we do this? And so I think gradually, I'm not sure that there was a defined time that it happened, but I think gradually over the course of it, through reading, through podcasts, through just opening up our mind to different leadership ideas, it kind of grew into what we've been able to do today, which is nowhere near where I want to end up. But I feel like we've done a good job of empowering more people to help us take a little bite out of the pie.
Awesome advice. Thanks. Sarah, tell everybody about you and what you do. We're grateful that you're here with us at the table.
Well, thank you. Pleasure to be sitting at this table. So my name is Sarah Glenn, and I am currently serving as the EMS officer for Franklin Fire Department, overseeing an ALS first responder agency. Previously, I had been the director of EMS education for Columbia State and served on the TEMSEA board for several years. So had the EMS education background that has kind of taken me back into some of this and being involved. So the greatest thing that
greatest lesson you've ever learned in your leadership journey.
Y'all had some great answers, by the way. So I've been in EMS I didn't mention this, but I've been in EMS for 25 years. I know that I look way too young to believe that, but so I started in leadership roles really early in my career, so I've probably been in leadership for about 18 years of that. So it kind of partially got pushed into that unwillingly at one point. So, but that has definitely, it's been a very different journey starting in official leadership that early on. And so certainly I've learned a lot of lessons along the way and learned from some great mentors and supervisors and things like that along my way. I would say really though the greatest lesson has come fairly recently, and that was to always tell people how much I appreciate them and what kind of job that they're doing. And I both have been failed in that way, that I have had people not tell me because they just assumed I knew, because they felt like I was doing a good job and I must know that I'm doing a good job. But you need to hear that, and people crave wanting to hear that. But then I have also failed in telling people that as well. And, just telling somebody and then having that realization that they wanted to hear that from you and that they needed to hear that from you. And being that encourager and somebody who helps them develop and be more confident as a leader, whether it's in an unofficial or official capacity. I totally agree. I think leadership starts from day one. But I think really, when you see that in somebody and you see those qualities and you see their potential, speaking that out loud and telling them what you see in them and how important they are, because we get busy with things, we are sidetracked and thinking about other things, but people really do need to hear that, and they need that encouragement from people. You sometimes don't realize who's looking up to you too, and I feel like we're a pretty humble group, so I think you don't necessarily realize how many people are looking to you as a mentor, and to be able to tell them that you appreciate them and that you see the good in them.
The power of words, really. In a leadership position or not in a leadership position, it's a double-edged sword. I don't know if y'all feel the same way. I have absolutely been on the sharp side of my words, but I've also more intentionally now have been on the other side of being able to lift somebody up with my words. And that's a great lesson. Any feedback or comments on that?
I think for me, 100%. And I've really had to gear myself toward that, because my natural mentality is, okay, how do we make this better? And in pursuit of that, forget to praise the partial progress. I mean, somebody's done a great job. It's like, okay, good job. Now, how do we make this better? Yeah, I short-circuited what was really awesome here and what I want to see continue, and as a result of that, I think I have discouraged people from trying before. You should absolutely have high standards and not settle for anything less, but you also have to praise the progress along the way, and I think that's so huge. Great points.
I think that's hard to do as a leader when we're mission-focused and we're dealing with problems and we're dealing with vision, and then you hear something good like you explained, Darren. And I learned that several years ago when during one of our meetings where we're reporting updates, and most of them are problem-based, and then something good came to be, and the person that I reported to paused and he says, you need to recognize what just happened, because 90% of the things we do are bad. Take that opportunity and to lift. And this is not just professionally, like this is personally. If we have kids or we're around kids at church or whatever, be able to just pause and be like, man, you're looking great today. You've done a great job. Thank you for, making sure that, you help that little kid up, whatever it is. I think that's certainly a huge thing that we all can practice. Any comments, Jason, about anything that you've heard today?
Yes, just echoing what was said before me, is celebrate those wins. Myself included, I am notorious if I get busy, if I get in my silo, if I'm not having to come to you with a problem, I think that you can interpret that you're doing well. But not all people share my views, and as a leader, I need to do what is most comfortable for them, that is fulfilling and lifting of them. So I agree completely. Celebrate the wins, acknowledge the great work that's being done, and empower somebody to want to do more. Just your words of encouragement might be all that is needed for that person to elevate themselves to the next level or do even better than the amazing work that they're already doing. So absolutely, celebrate the wins.
And for all the people that are listening, which, there's thousands of people that listen to our podcast now, is whatever position that you're in, you make a difference, even if nobody tells you. Like, we are in the service-minded industry, and we do make a difference. And the community needs the work that these professionals do. And we appreciate you all spending time with us today. Certainly, you added a lot of value.
Absolutely.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.
You guys feel good about that?
I do. Can we toss around just a few thoughts so I can make mine gel?
Yeah.
I don't know. I almost think we need to do it on camera.
You want
Ooh.
to do it cold?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I'll say what she said. I'm good with what she
Yeah.
said.
Ditto.
And that way. But here's the thing: like, we're not live, so we could be like, that was.
That was
That
a
was bad.
stupid
Yeah.
answer, Angie. We're going to get that out.
Honestly, I think the funnier it is, the more people watch it. So, but you still get your
Yeah,
point across,
definitely. Well, welcome everyone. We're we got our second group here. We're going to have a lot of fun today. So the question that I have for you all that we're going to be asking each of you is, what advice would you give someone new to EMS who really kind of is looking towards taking on a leadership role one day? And as I ask you this, obviously reflected on it, and there's a lot that comes to my mind when this question is asked. And so the advice that I would give is to listen more than we talk. I think that would be one thing that, I think that maybe overconfident when you get out of school and you're like, I have the answers. But I probably would have done that more. I would have listened more. And in addition to that, and I think I've learned it from this podcast, is interview people, but have a conversation and really ask questions, because people have, their upbringing changes the way they treat patients, the way they grew up.
Yeah.
The services that they work for. So I probably would say that interview as many people as you can, but get to know them and be intrigued. And because I think with that, it creates the spirit of making us better. And that's why we kind of did this roundtable, is because, your answers, which they're not scripted, we've already talked about that before we hit go. And so I'm looking forward to kind of where this takes us. So, Angie, let's start with you, if you don't mind. Just kind of tell everybody, who you are. You and I work together.
Yes.
Well, like next year will be 20 years is when you and I first met.
That's crazy.
It is. So you have a lot of experience. So I'm excited that you joined us. But tell everybody who you are that doesn't know you. I can't believe anybody listening to this would not know you.
Exactly.
But anyway.
Legend.
Thanks, guys. So I'm Angie Bowen. I have 36 years of experience in pre-hospital, but I spent the bulk of my career in the hospital world at East Tennessee Children's Hospital. Left there as the trauma program manager and the regional coordinator for EMS for children. And currently, I am the pediatric emergency care coordinator at Jefferson County EMS. I have gone on my journey and returned to my first love of EMS and children. So happy to be doing that.
Well, we're honored that you're here with your leadership experience. And we're all together here at Walter State doing a beta class that we'll talk about here in just a little bit. But let's talk about this question, Angie. So what advice would you give someone new to EMS who really is looking towards becoming a leader one day?
I think one of the best things they can do is find a mentor.
No, you can't say that.
I can. That's why I went first.
Oh, my gosh.
You're going to have to think of something else.
I'm not.
You
You finish.
Sorry,
I
John.
believe you did that.
great minds and all, John. So I do. I think finding a mentor who sets an example for you, who you can continue to go back to. I have mentors from very early in my career that I may not speak to for a year or two, but they have an area of expertise that I might call them up to tap into that even now, because their opinion is very much valued. And I'd like to play off something you said. You talked about listening. I think as new students come out of school and new people move up in the leadership roles, they don't want to appear to not have the answers. We inculcate having that answer into our students. So they're afraid if they don't have the answer. But not only finding a mentor or set of mentors, because there are varying levels of expertise and different areas of expertise, but knowing that it's okay not to immediately have that answer, and actively listening, as you said, to what these folks have to share with you.
So this meant that is amazing advice. And John, I know you're going to talk a little bit about that as well. I wanted to add something to that. I think there's a misconception about mentorship, is that one person can mentor you on everything, which is not the truth. And I think part of that comes from experience. Like the person that I want to mentor me in my personal life is not the one in professional life. So the person that is mentoring you needs to be an expert in that bucket. But we all have several buckets, and we're getting a mentor to improve. So I just wanted to let everybody know through our experiences is that that is a very big thing, mentorship. But look at the areas that you need to work on, that you're intentional about, that will certainly make a difference. And John, I think you're going to say the same thing. But before we jump in, I just want to make a comment. Like, sure. We are here at your place today at Walter State. Yeah, and one, we want to know what you do and how long you've been doing this, and kind of give us a framework of where we are. We're in the beautiful mountains of East Tennessee, by the way, but anyway.
So Walter State is located in Morristown, Tennessee. We're kind of between Johnson City and Kingsport and Knoxville, so we're kind of right in the middle of that. So an hour either way, and you can be exposed to a lot of opportunities, shops, restaurants, all that good stuff. Walter State's been around for a long time. I've been the program director for about 6 to 7 years, but I came here in 2012 as a paramedic instructor. So now we kind of do fire science, and a program director for fire science and the paramedic portion of it. That's what I've been doing. I really got into this in 1992, though, like a lot of people my age did back in the day. We joined the rescue squad.
Right.
And then, of course, one ride and had the bug. And 4 years later, I was taking the EMTIV tech class. And then I came through this program in 97 at Walter State and graduated in 98. So, been doing it for a little while. I've been exposed to every aspect of public safety, from fire, aeromedical medicine, HEMS programs, and currently still do tactical medicine on the side to serve my community.
It's incredible. We're honored to be able to be here. So let's take a dive at this question.
Yeah.
We think we know what you're going to say, but I'm sure there's some depth to it. But what advice would you give someone new?
Yeah, so I mean,
not see that coming.
Yeah.
Didn't see that.
that.
Imitation's the sincere.
I did not plan this. You said it at the beginning. I won't say mentor. Mentorship, and I don't want to change it. And I think because 2 out of 3 so far have said that, I think it shows the importance of that for people that get into any profession, not just EMS, public safety, whatever, have a mentor or mentors in their life. I think the thing that I did wrong was, and it really, I didn't know anything about it until just a few years ago, about what it was like to be a mentee and a mentor, until I was asked to present that at a conference. And so I had to do a lot of research. I think a lot of people in EMS already have a person that they've selected to be their mentor or mentors. They've just never approached them and said, hey, I want you to walk with me through my profession. And unfortunately, because I've been doing this for almost 28 years now, a lot of the people that I selected myself were I watched. Maybe they didn't know I was watching, but they were my mentor. He was my mentor, she was my mentor. A lot of those folks are gone now. And so now I see how important it was and how much more important and beneficial it could have been if I had approached somebody and said, hey, will you walk with me through my profession and through my career? Even if you leave and go somewhere else, or if I end up going somewhere else, we're still in communications with each other, because there's things that's going to come up that I don't know how to respond to or how to act, or I don't know what the best decision might be when I presented something. And so it's good to have that person to go to, not just for professional development, but personal development as well. Yeah. I think it's huge. I think any parent, any mom or dad, they're a mentor to the mentee, which is their kids. They never sit down and said, now listen, son, I'm going to walk with you through your life. It's a given. And I feel like it should be that way in any profession, especially with EMS.
So I want to dive just a little bit deeper into this, because for those that are listening are like, okay, I don't know who I have to mentor. One of the things that happened, I think, to me early on is I realized that I didn't have a mentor, but I was at that time before podcasts was reading books that were like, these individuals turned out to be my mentor at first, and now there's podcast. But for those that specifically ask someone to be a mentor, what I would encourage you, and I would love to hear y'all's comments, is that when you specifically ask them for time, if it's 30 minutes or an hour, whatever they're willing to give you, ask them questions. You don't have to tell your story. You're there for them, for their expertise. Prepare. If I have you as a mentor, John, I'm going to come in and say, hey, what was the biggest challenge in your career? Mm-hmm. And here's my challenge. What is some advice you can give me? Just be intentional for those that are listening. This mentorship, we're using it, but there are levels to this, that there's some preparation. So what were some of the things that your mentors have helped you with along the way? And were you intentionally at first, or did you have to learn the intentionality of, what it was?
I think I had to learn it. And again, the folks that I would name that I was watching, they never knew that. They don't, to this day, they would never have known, even if they've passed away, they would never have known that I was watching them, and they, behind the curtain, was a mentor for me.
Okay.
So it was really, a lot of it was visual observation to see how they responded to certain situations. Okay. Again, I have to go back to the child and the parent. If you're a parent, your kids are watching everything you do.
Painfully so.
They see the good, they see the bad, and our hope as a parent, at least for me as a father to a son and a daughter, is that I'm the hero.
Yeah.
So it gets personal, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it does. Well, I can't remember the story, but one of the leaders was saying in one of the podcasts or something, it was like, my goodness, it's so frustrating that my kids do everything that I do, and they do nothing that I say. And I was like, wow, how true is that? So yeah, it's a great example, and there's a lot of depth to that. So we appreciate those comments. So last but not least, certainly, Nathan would love to hear about what it is that you do. And I know you do a lot, and for those that don't know you.
Well, I did not start out seeking public safety as a lifestyle. I was a military brat, didn't watch Emergency, didn't watch the shows, didn't gawk at fire trucks and police cars as they drove by, and joined the military as an open general, which I don't highly recommend doing. And the military decided I was going to be a firefighter, and fell head over heels in love with that profession and really enjoyed every aspect of it. And that led me to being a first responder, then an EMT, because the majority of our calls were, especially in the military, were medical calls. And so I started pursuing the medical field, and it was just a click. It was a passion that I never knew I had. Nobody in my family had pursued that, and so I knew when I got out, my wife was born and raised in Oak Ridge, and so when I got out, she said she was going home, and I go wherever she goes. So I came back home to my new home and transitioned into initially Gatlinburg Fire, and then full-time into EMS operations at Anderson County EMS in 2002, and as an EMT basic, and worked my way up and eventually became director and still serve as director over there at Anderson County EMS.
That's amazing. Yeah, your journey's been amazing, and you were already on the coaching call with Phil.
Yeah.
And which was great. And so let's jump into this question, Nathan. What do you say about this? What advice would you give someone new to EMS who is like, man, I want to be just like Nathan? What would you tell them?
Don't aim a whole lot higher than and I honestly say that. Never, my bar's, I'm too low. You need to aim a whole lot higher than that. But I could easily say what has already been said as well. And actually, my mentors were not in public safety. My mentors came in the church. I was loved on in an incredible way by some godly men in student ministry. I did middle school student ministry, but what I would say is you need to know what your why is. So I've got, in every new hire, I tell them about this. I tell them what my why is. Actually, I have two whys. I have a universal why. The why that when I go to bed at night, I think of. When I wake up in the morning, I think of. In every aspect of who I am as a human being, a director, a father, a husband, my universal why is Jesus Christ. He died for me and paid a ransom that I could never pay. And honestly, I won more than he did in that relationship. That is my universal why, every aspect of my life. My EMS why, and that as a leader, as a director, is my staff. That is my why. That is why I am a director, is to love on my staff and to provide for my staff. And I honestly, that means sometimes telling them what they don't like to hear. It's not all, I'm not a touchy-feely type. I am a hugger, but, I'm not touchy-feely. And so I'm not going to just fluff them up. But they're my why. As a director, I'm there to support them and guide them and give them direction in the organization and steer that ship. But that's my why. So if you're an aspiring leader, you need to understand what your why is. Why are you doing? What is your motivation? What is your heartbeat? If your heartbeat or motivation is a rank, please don't do it. You'll just be so dissatisfied. If it's some personal aspiration, there's nothing wrong with goals and dreams. Go get them. But when you're going to be in a position that you're going to be serving other people and leading other people, which is serving them, they have to be an aspect of your motivation. They just have to be. Or you're just going to find yourself out taking a walk and not really having the people around you. And it's so much better when you're in that mentality and you're walking with people and you get to, man, I'm blessed that way because I get to watch some staff that do some incredible things, and our organization is better than it has ever been because we have staff that are just so engaged and love what they do, and they're growing and developing. And I was telling my boss 3 weeks ago, I said, man, I've got probably half a dozen people that could easily be future directors. And I can't think of a time that I could point back that we had that. Yeah. And it is incredible, but that would be what is your why? Define that. What is it? What's your motivation?
I think in summarizing all of this is what I've heard from mentorships and defining your why is there came a period in our careers when we realized that it wasn't about us. Yeah. It was about others. Yep. It was about being mentored, and it was about lifting your team up and serving your team. And I think that has been a common theme that all of us are very, we're not insecure. We understand that the better our people are around us, the better we are as a group. And it's a whole lot better to move as a team. Mm-hmm. And we're honored that you all joined us today. Really, you guys add a lot of value, and I really appreciate you guys spending the time with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
And Lee disappeared.
Yeah.
So, Lee, we are going to take a stab at you.
Yeah.
He said do this.
Yeah,
Apparently his why was to move away.
How long have you guys been doing this? Like years wise?
30 plus.
Brad? 30 plus?
32.
27.
Okay. So like 100 years in the room. All right.
Getting close.
All right. You guys good?
Mm-hmm.
Feel good?
Yep. Sounds
All
good.
right. Lee, are we good on camera? I think we're good. All right. Well, group 3, pretty fired up about having almost 100 years of EMS experience in the room.
Are EMS years like dog years, and they double or triple?
I sure hope not, because we all would be in serious trouble.
Yeah.
End of life. Yes. They put us down.
Oh,
Yeah.
sometimes I think some people that I work with probably would choose to do that anyway right now.
Yeah.
Well, we're excited to be able to have you all participate. All of us are here in part of the leadership project in the beta testing. And I can't wait to talk to you all about this question. And so the question that I have for you all, as we had talked about this earlier, is if you all had to go back early on in your career, what would you do differently now, kind of knowing what you know now? And I reflected on that, and I think what comes to my mind for me would be I would be a little more intentional to kind of get outside of what was happening with me. I would probably start reading some books probably early on, and maybe not just in EMS, but in general, because I think there's a lot of, crosses of learning leadership strategies and so forth. And I think today when we started, there was no such thing as a podcast, and here we are on one. I probably would be more intentional about learning kind of from other people. That's probably what I would do differently. And so, Chris, let's do an introduction of, who you are for those that don't know you, and how long you've been doing this, and then we'll tackle that question.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Chris McLean. 30-some years. I work for AMR now as the clinical manager, but also retired from the Air Force.
Thanks for your service.
Thank you so much.
How many years do you spend in the service?
22.
22. Wow.
Yeah. So I was kind of duplicating jobs
throughout
my career.
So you have, a leadership, fundamental from military, and then here you are into the EMS world.
Yes, sir.
So let's talk about that. So if you had to go back and start it again, what would Chris do differently?
So I'm very fortunate from the military aspect. I think I had a good foundation, but really you hit it on the head. Intentional.
Yeah.
People come from different areas, backgrounds, and experience. So you have to invest in those people to make sure you give them the tools they need to succeed. And the people, that's our biggest commodity, and we're seeing that now across the country with the shortages in staffing.
Yeah.
So we have to make it appealing to them and make sure they're going to be taken care of, and they know that.
Was there just curious, Chris, was there some similarities in leadership with military and with EMS?
So I would think so. We all have a core background. Obviously, the military teaches you service before self.
Okay.
So that's kind of the motto I've always went by, even now. And that's why I say really invest in your people, give them opportunities to grow, better themselves, and in turn you'll get a much better end product that can be productive for your organization.
I love that service before self, because we talked about that in the last group of the more mature we become in leaders, the more that we realize that, we have great responsibilities and other people that we are, bringing up to be better, and more about a team moving forward than it is about us being an individual. That's very hard. I don't know if it was for you all, but that transition of, whoa, this is bigger than me. And so I appreciate that. That's, you got a lot of experience on both, and that's certainly valuable. Well, Brad, what about you? Tell everybody about you, and let's tackle that question. If you had to go back, what would you do differently?
So I'm Brad Phillips. I'm the director of Jefferson County Emergency Management and EMS. That's a combined department. Been a paramedic for 32 years. I've actually been the director of my organization for the past 20.
Wow. Okay.
And so, it's been a lot of years under my belt.
A lot's changed.
A lot has changed.
Yeah.
And so I was fortunate enough. I've been in that organization in almost my entire career.
Okay.
I've worked part-time and spent some time in the aeromedical field on a part-time basis for a short period of time. When I stepped into the management roles, I had to give some of those things up. But it gave me a broad background. I think for me, the changes in what I would do differently start even before I became a leader, in being, especially coming from the organization and staying in that, and now leading that same organization. For me, it would be paying more attention to what the leaders that I was following were doing right and what they were doing wrong, and preparing myself, because at the time I didn't see myself as a leader or did I ever see me going into that role. And so to go back and change how intentional I was with myself in building myself to be able to, when I was needed in that role. I've served on tactical teams and other teams, and the team concept flows even in all, or should flow in all organizations that are successful. And the part of being in a team is the next man up mentality that you hear in sports teams all the time. The guy that's sitting on the bench, two injuries away from being the starter.
Yeah.
And in our organizations, or at least in mine, as I was growing up, there wasn't a mentorship for someone to take your place. And so I wasn't preparing myself as I should have been because I didn't see myself in that role. So I would go back and change that initially. And then I would have started sooner in those 20 years as the director to have that next man up ready to take my place or anyone else's place within the organization, because you never know what's going to happen. Tragedy happens, life happens, people leave, they go to other organizations. I think I've been very fortunate that as I've matured, that there have been other leaders that have went to other organizations that I mentored in some form or fashion. Their success is their own, but at least I had a small part in them desiring to be a leader. And so I would have started that part of the process sooner. It's almost like I wasted the first 10 years of my directorship because I was in the moment so much, trying to learn myself to mentor those to take leadership roles themselves. And so
That's a great. I'm reflecting back on this, Brad, with when all of us can remember, and it's been a long time for all of us. That first experience when we get on EMS as an EMT, and we're watching things unfold, or we get on the scene of an MCI, and that lead provider takes control when they become a leader, and you're like, wow, that is awesome. Mm-hmm. Then you experience that as a leader, and you're like, whoa, okay. So you're continuing to go on, but I think that is great advice. But all of us here in the room, and everybody that we've talked to today, many of us probably didn't even think that we could do it, let alone be in a position. But age comes, right? Are you going to continue to be in the role, or are you going to seek other opportunities? But I love that. And, this is football time right now, right? Mm-hmm. We got playoffs that are happening tomorrow. Go UT. Anyway, we're in East Tennessee country.
Go Vols.
That's right. So, but that concept about being ready to go in, but for us as providers in the new, like we're already in, like we can't see ourselves becoming the quarterback because, we have another part of the team. But, I certainly love that. And that is great advice. So, look beyond where you are right now in your potential. So, Dan, if you don't mind, just kind of, tell everybody who you are and let's tackle that question with you as well. What advice would you?
So, Dan Wheely, I'm the director for Washington County Johnson City EMS. Like Brad, I started there as a volunteer when I was in college. Volunteered at the rescue squad through college, and then worked my way up through the ranks, and have been there, counting my volunteer time, 34 years.
Wow.
I've been director for the last 12. So, okay. Looking back, I think my biggest thing was early on, I wished I had gotten out of my comfort zone more, that I had realized that I had mentors that saw some potential in me. I didn't get where I am on my own. I had a lot of people throughout my career that saw something and gave me opportunities that I didn't even realize at the time were opportunities. But, I wished I had realized those people were my mentors and embraced that and really worked with them to further develop myself. I think, Brad makes a great point. As we move up, I think as you move up into positions, when you're very young, you achieve that and you think, well, I've arrived and, I've got what my goal was, whether it's a lieutenant, an FTO, whatever that is. And then my experience has been you kind of hold that close to you. And you're a little skeptical of everybody else. And I think as leaders, Now I'm looking, just like Brad said, I'm trying to find who's going to be my replacement, because I'm not going to be there forever.
Right.
And I could get run over by a train tomorrow. And it's a different perspective now of we shouldn't be afraid of those that want our jobs. We should embrace those people that want our jobs, right? If we do at any level, if you do your job as an FTO, a lieutenant, captain, DC, whatever, if you're doing your job, you have nothing to be afraid of. So those under you should embrace and train them to do your job, because hopefully you want to move up to the next position, and we need people to fill those spots. So I think, the longer you're in the position, but in that, identifying those mentors early on in your career, those people that are willing to work with you, and just really embracing them. I thought I had to do everything myself and tried to do everything myself, and really missed out on a lot of opportunities to learn from some really good people, because I lived in my little bubble and just wanted to take care of myself and make sure that I was doing all the right things, but really didn't reach out and take advantage of people who were there and willing and able to help me, and missed out on a lot from that.
Any comments about that or thoughts?
Yeah, so I would definitely go the team effort brings it all together. And to be honest, if I was going to tell a new leader coming up, man, surround yourself with good people.
Yeah.
You don't have to know everything, but if those other people are there to support you, you'll all succeed. So that's why a team is really important.
Do you think that I want to pause for a second, Chris, with this? Is that do you think that is a difficult transition? Maybe because it's a healthy, maybe, I don't want to use the word, I can't think of another, ego, like, you're confident in your ability. Was that a difficult transition, for you, do you think? It was for me, I think.
I think so, because in the military, it's kind of inbred in you, how you're going to do your job, how you're going to function, chain of command.
Yeah.
So when you transition over, I think it is hard to cut loose. You want everything to succeed. And you have to think you've got to have your hand on the button every time, which you don't. There's good people out there, and give them the opportunity to grow and empower them to do their job, and we'll be successful. Yes, sir.
What do you think, Brad? What's your thoughts on this?
I agree with Dan. It was very easy for me when I first stepped into the role, because I intricately knew the organization. I was already part of the organization, to be in my bubble and say, I've been here, I should know what to do, but there were a lot of cases I didn't, and I did not seize the opportunity to even reach outside of my organization, because I was, in our region, there were several directors with plenty of experience that I could have reached out to sooner to say, what's your advice? Have you dealt with this situation? And seek out those people to mentor me, and not be afraid to say, I don't have the answer. And it's okay to say that I don't have the answer. I learned that as I matured, that it was okay to say, I don't have the answer, and to put people around me and say, you're the expert on this. Here, go do this. If you need my help, come to me, but I'm going to let you handle it. You're the expert on this situation. So
I think that's true leadership, honestly.
And in EMS, you're the paramedic on the truck, and you're responsible for your partner. You're responsible for the patient, and you're used to taking charge, and you're having the answers. When you step into that leadership role, now you're not just answering for your patient and your partner.
That's right.
You've got 20, 30, however large your organization is. All those people depend on you. And then when you sit down and think about it at night, when you lay down in bed, I don't just have those 30 people and their careers. I have their families and all those that depend on them. I can't mess this up. And so the gravity of the situation begins to take toll very early on. And if you don't reach out to other people that know how to shoulder that burden, you can become overwhelmed pretty quickly. And it's easy to pull. The more you feel inadequate, or at least for me, I'll speak for me, the more I felt inadequate, because I wasn't used to feeling inadequate, because everything had come so easy for me up to that point. I wanted to pull everything close in the survival instinct
of like, oh, I don't have control on this situation, and I just closed off and then didn't seek the help I needed to seek. So
it's an interesting, I think, a challenge. We all know this in the room, but for the young leaders is the longer that I'm in this journey, the less sure I am about the answers. But the more that I would rely on other people
Yes, sir.
to be able to be like, hey, I think I know the answer, but I'm gonna be phone a friend, right? Remember that, and we're just like, man, just tell me what you would do,
Sure.
and you're like, okay, I'm on the right track, or like, whoa, I never saw that. So that's a mature move, and I think that's probably why I've enjoyed this podcast so much, is because everybody has different experiences, and we're able to share with the younger generation that are going to take our jobs in the future. And I wanted to thank each of you for being here. This is what this is all about, is to be able to share, and for you to be able to share the lessons that you've learned to benefit thousands of people now across the country that are listening to this. So you added value. Thank each of you for what you do.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
thanks.
thank you very much, and thank you for this.
Yeah, we appreciate it. You can follow us and subscribe doing the following the podcast there. That was terrible. I'm going to do it one more time because I'm on a flow. At least laughing. Thanks for joining us today on the TEMSEA Leadership Podcast. We were honored to be able to be here on location at Walter State Community College. Thanks to them. Without them, we would have not had this location and the opportunity to interview 9 people that you got to meet, some of the amazing leaders that are making things happen in the state. We were just honored to be able to introduce them to you. A couple of quick things is we have the Tennessee Ambulance Service Association Midwinter Conference coming up in February. Check us out. We would love to see you there. We're going to be recording some podcasts, amazing speakers there. YouTube, we have a YouTube channel. Tens of thousands of people have watched that. Great videos. Also follow us and subscribe on all platforms, including Spotify and Apple. And remember, we say this all the time, the most important person that you will ever lead is you. Don't take that for granted. We are honored you joined us. You make a huge difference, and we are looking forward to seeing you again soon.